Greetings, Soulswind here, and welcome to a new series. It's actually a set of series known as special events. And for the first of the series, it's the Steam Base Builder Fest 2023. It lasts from 10 a.m. 23rd January to 10 a.m. 30th January Pacific Time. Base Builder Fests. Games that involve base building as a core mechanic. Let's look at some of the games that are featured on here. Firstly, clicking on the Base Builder Fest banner at Steam Store's homepage would lead us to this page, and we can see some of the featured games around here with those that are on our wish lists. So here we are. Some of these games I've had them on the wishlist for quite a while, and some of them newly added. There were many that I almost bought but decided to hold back for a little bit in consideration for my wallet. And this is free to play. Instead, it's still on the wishlist because other than the wallet, I just don't have the time. Then we've got these featured games. And special event game profiles. Ooh. Oh, event profiles, avatars. Even city skylines is a base builder. So now, what exactly does Steam think are base builders? Now, instead of just looking at the featured or the recommended, because they're on my wish list, obviously, they'll be recommended. But if we take a look at the categories, we have got base buildings. The core mechanics are base building. So we've got these games here. I've heard some things and read some articles about some of these games here. Particularly, I've watched gameplay of RimWorld. We've got these also, base building, Grounded. I've watched gameplay of Grounded. It's very good. But the enemies are creepy crawlies, which I really don't like. If only there's like some workshop support or something that can modify all those creepy crawlies into maybe some other MMORPG monsters or whatnot, it would have been better. But unfortunately, no, I just don't think I will be able to play it. We've got Age of Empires 4 as a base building. Well, they kinda are base building, but then again, I mean, Age of Empires 3 is here too. Anyway, Age of Empires, they're kind of base building, but I think they're more focused on something else. More about this later, but anyway, I have Age of Empires 3 physical disc version, so I don't have to purchase this. Nonetheless, it's still on my wish list. Now, if we were to scroll down, we got city builders. So city builders are technically base builders as well, but other than just building base of operations, we more often than not manage a city or a population of people, a colony. We got like Farthest Frontier, we got the Age of Empires, we got Tropical. I have bought Tropical, I just haven't added to my Steam library yet. And then this has a long story regarding Steam. Generally, you manage a colony, you manage a town, you manage a population, ensure their survival. Like RimWorld is here. I would totally think they should be here. And Dwarf Fortress as well, a colony of dwarves, etc. So, yeah. Even strategy, which would definitely involve Age of Empire as well. They're also base builders, but they're more focused on strategy and not exactly base building. The base building is probably the initial setup segment and occasionally surfaces as a priority. And of course, we've got simulation. Once again, simulation can be base builders too, but it's just trying to simulate, like for example, colony management simulation, island management simulation like Tropico, dinosaur zoo operation simulation in Jurassic World Evolution 2. I have JWE1, have not managed to play it yet, so JWE2 stays on my wishlist. And there's more. Sandbox can also be base builder where we don't want to really like worry too much about the resources. We just want to build a base, and we've got controller friendly ones which are accessibility. So we've seen what Steam thinks about base builder games, or what base builder games should be like. What do I think about base builder games then? I've got one main metric for comparisons and classifications, as well as several other caveats and requirements. The main consideration, I would call it zoom level, or rather scale level. So what do I mean by that? It's how much we zoom into the game and how small the base is, or how large the base is, as in the area that the base occupies. So for very zoomed in base builders, what I think is that they're small scale games whereby the base does not occupy a large area. Doesn't mean that it's not very well equipped or complex, it's just that the area, the physical area that the base occupies can be small. Meanwhile, the overall game world can be massive. So I would think that games like Void Train, Mr. Prepper, Oxygen Not Included would fall into this category. Void Train is just a vehicle, Mr. Prepper, a building, or rather an underground area, and it's just a small area, but if you were to explore the outer world, it could be very massive. Like Void Train involves a lot of traveling on the rails with your train, but then we'll have to equip the train with facilities, with upgrades, with more functionality. And similarly for Oxygen Not Included, we have got research tables, food processor machines, we've got toilets, we've got wash basins, oxygen producing machines, carbon dioxide removal machines, piping for liquids, for gases, but these are all very zoomed in, like it's within a structure. So in this case, most of the base building is centered around interior renovation and improvement. In this case, wouldn't The Sims also fall into this category? Well, maybe not so much. I'll talk about this in a little bit. It's due to the other requirements and considerations that I have. Now for medium scale games, we zoom out a little bit. The bases would cover a larger physical area. Once again, the game world can be massive. It doesn't matter here. It's the base, the scale of the base. For base builders in the medium scale, I think they're mostly modular. So like you add a module or add a building to your base to fulfill a certain function. Like in the case of Moonbase, we add an airlock, and the only function of this module is an airlock. We can add an air scrubber, and the function of that module, that little block in Moonbase, would just be to provide oxygen for breathing. We can also add an empty block and add other facilities in there, but there can only be one per block. So maybe this block would be just an empty block for movement. Another could be a storage box, and its only purpose would be to house that storage box. Another could be whereby you add a planter. That function of that block would just be for planting agriculture. That's Moonbase. We've got QB Factorium. We have got multiple buildings, and we've started to get more people. Moonbase is still one person, but Medieval Dynasty, QB Factorium, more people involved now. In the medium scale games though, we begin to see a gradual shift outside of physical base. So we have got construction inside the base, and we have got construction outside the base. Like solar panels for Moonbase has to be built outside the base. Or in the case of QB Factorium, the interiors of buildings are no longer a concern. It's all outside. So each expansion for the base would be a building or a construction unit outside of a building. Another good example of the medium scale category would be Rift Breaker, a game that I wanted to cover since I've mentioned it October or November of 2021, but just haven't got to playing it. Maybe except for the very initial startup, as I wanted to test the game for featuring on the channel. Now there's a lot more games in this category, the medium scale category. But how about the large scale category? We zoom out even more. There are multiple buildings now covering a large physical area, often involving a large population to manage or complex automation to discover and construct. The population size is dynamic and the population keeps growing and fluctuating. Another thing that I feel differentiates the large-scale base builders from the medium-scale base builders are that not only does the base occupy a physically larger area, it can often be built separately in distinct areas or regions, or even different islands or different planets. So base builder games in this category can sometimes fall into the city builder category or open world exploration category. If we were to search the titles here, only the games that fall under base builder category will be found here. Now, how do we get to here though? Browse categories, scroll all the way down to this segment. So, if we were to search for cooking simulator, it obviously does not appear here. But what I'm really surprised is that a base builder game that I know, No Man's Sky, is not considered base builders, or rather not categorized as base builders. Void Train is. Meanwhile, something quite similar to Void Train, Zombiercer, is not here. Now, before I end this episode, I haven't forgotten, why do I not think The Sims would fall under this category? The other considerations? It's management as well as survival. Most of the base builder games have a survival aspect to it, be it the small scale, the medium scale, or the large scale. They often have survival under their category tags as well. Whether it's keeping the player alive, keeping a colony alive, protecting against disasters and other forms of threats and danger, often in an unknown land and hostile environment. So if it's not just the player's survival, we would also see management and colony simulation tags in the game's description, whereby the players are then tasked with ensuring the survival of the colony, managing their welfare, and their well-being. That's not applicable to all, of course. Anyway, we also see that Red Alert, Stronghold Warlords, Age of Empires are classified under base builders. Why is that so? Despite building a base for the purpose of combat and perhaps for defense and survival of the base, they often do have some interesting mechanics involved in the base building, sometimes involving complex production chains. Now that's a lot of rambling on what I think about base builders, and that sort of concludes this video for an introduction to the Base Builder Fest on Steam. Following this video would be several gameplay videos on various base builder games that I have selected to feature as part of the Steam Base Builder Fest events series. Almost every game selection would be demo versions. I'm already a little bit late into this event, so if possible, I'll try to upload 2 videos a day. I hope this video hasn't bored you to sleep, and I hope you enjoy this series. Thank you so much for watching. That's all I have for now. Have a nice day, and enjoy the Steam City Builder Fest 2023.